Hello, everybody, and welcome to this conversation with Resolve Network. I am Veena Kandike, Director of Grants and Partnerships at Dining for Women. And today I have a guest with me, Vijaya Thakur, who is the Executive Director of Resolve Network, and she is joining us from Berlin, Germany. Hello, Vijaya, welcome.
Thank you so much, Veena.
I believe you have a presentation to share with us, so go ahead and share your screen, Vijaya.
Okay, thank you so much, Veena, for having me. Thank you to Dining for Women. And we at Resolve, we're so excited to be part of this family now. So we really thank you for your support for this project. And I would love to share a little bit more about it with you. So the project that we're doing with Dining for Women is called Share the Seeds. And we really want to emphasize that while I'm the one here sharing with you right now, we are a very participatory organization and we are nothing if not all of our members. So while I'm the voice here, please keep in mind everybody who is back home in Congo and doing the actual work while I am here in Berlin. So this is where we work in DRC. And we work in Eastern Congo in North and South Kivu, which is where the conflict has been since 1996. And our mission, like I said, we are an extremely participatory organization. We are completely led by our participants. And our mission is to empower the women and men who are most affected by conflict to reclaim their lives, rebuild their communities, and build peace from the ground up. We have a 3-tiered approach that starts at the individual level, then goes to the community level, and then to the societal level. And at each stage, we build measurable and sustainable progress towards peace in the lives of the people that we work with. Our participants come from the poorest of the poor. They come from the marginalized communities where they are. They are all at the highest risk for recruitment into armed groups, which we define as youth, typically age 17 to 30, people who are underemployed or unemployed, from the poorest of the poor, like we said. Most of our participants start off making about 32 cents a day. And they come from families where parents have to choose which child to feed on which day. That's the level of poverty that we're talking about. These are also, a lot of times they are former combatants. Many have been displaced, many are returnees. They face extreme challenges upon their return home. They are well more than half of our participants are women. And our participants are always ethnically representative of the communities where we work. And they are socially representative. So that includes people who are differently abled, people who have been injured in wartime, people from all the different social groups that exist in that community. Like I said, we start very much at the individual level. And to emphasize that, I have a little chart for you. So we start off very much in tier 1 at the individual level and thinking about what this person needs to regain control in her own life at the household level, at the individual level. That includes access to mental health. That includes access to being able to meet your basic needs and your family's basic needs, to have shelter, to be economically self-sufficient, and to have access to decision-making. So the core part of our tier 1 programs involves financial literacy and microfinance programs. It involves peaceful cohabitation training, just simply learning how to live with people that you have been at war with for multiple generations at this point, how to resolve conflict peacefully, how to understand conflict dynamics active in your community, how to establish a common narrative of the conflict, and how to have empathy and social cohesion with one another. So so we do financial literacy, microfinance, peaceful cohabitation training, and nonviolent action training so that you can access ways to influence decision-making and to enact decision-making in your community through alternatives to violence. Then as people in our program begin to inculcate these trainings, then they're able to act together collectively because they are from all these diverse groups within their community. So now they can work together to enact change at the community level, putting what they learned in tier 1 programs out into the community themselves. and slowly growing towards a community level of change. So our participants then, they lead dialogue within their communities on the exact topics that they just went through. And so they discuss the ongoing impact of conflict in their community and the risk for future conflict, and then how to mitigate that through peace building projects that they can implement locally. That's always a very exciting time for us at Tier 2. So that's where you really start to see some major shifts happening in those communities. Then as they gain the experience and the expertise from managing these community peace building projects, then they start beginning to branch out into the societal level. How do we scale that impact from the community level to the society level, to the territory level, to really scaling up that impact into peace building work? And that then continues to reinforce this turning what has been a vicious cycle into a virtuous circle, where people can continue to replenish themselves, continue to rebuild their communities, and then grow peace, build peace step by step from there. And that's who we are at Resolve. So that's the work that we do. Some of the projects that we've been able to do in Tier 1, they have had some tremendous results, including, like we said, most of our participants start off earning on average about 32 cents a day. They receive a $125 microloan after they make their business plans, after they conduct a market assessment, and then they start their own businesses. They work in cohorts of 6 with other participants, all of whom are from different ethnic groups, different social groups. They support one another in problem solving and celebrating successes, and they deliver joint progress together. Instead of having a competition over resources, they focus on collaboration and see hard deliverables from that collaboration, which includes a 4,065% increase in their income. That is a sustainable rise out of global poverty that our participants achieve within their first year in our program. Then, as we said, they start to move from impact at their individual household level and within their cohorts to then start growing that outside into the community. And this is one of our participants, Amy, receiving her dialogue facilitation training, which then allows them to lead dialogue like we talked about. And some of the projects that they've implemented through that dialogue process is the peaceful integration of displaced people, reforming school curricula, because oftentimes teachers can be implicated in recruitment for armed groups. And so reforming the curriculum and the mindset of teachers so that school is a safe place for their kids, voter education, all kinds of different programs. And those have gotten some really wonderful results that we've seen in communities. Then, as we said, we move to the societal level, and this is a picture from a democratic dialogue session that our participants led with local and state actors. So state actors coming from the capital to the capital of the province to these small villages to talk about the problems in the community. And afterwards, we were told by some of the officials who were there that they had never been asked such tough questions before. So you have people from the poorest of the poorest sharing equal footing with people from the government and really advocating for their vision of peace and development. This has also led to some really tremendous changes that we are very proud of, and that has really touched a lot of people. It includes adding women, poor people, and other marginalized groups into local representation bodies, including peace and conflict resolution. Can you imagine doing a conflict resolution session with people who are not from the groups that are represented? I mean, it can't work that way. So that's an incredible step towards peace that our participants have been able to take. So far in this process, we've worked with more than 7,000 people at the individual level as direct participants. And then the programs that they have launched and the campaigns that they have waged have implicated more than 75,000 people at the community level. And then at the societal level, it's difficult to estimate the exact numbers, but more than hundreds of thousands of people have been implicated in the reforms that our participants have been able to win. So that's who we are.
Absolutely wonderful, Vijaya. Thank you so much for sharing this very interesting story of how communities that have been colonized for so many years are now trying to emerge and in self-determination and trying to get back to who
Yeah.
they are. So tell us, what is the origin story of your own beginning Resolve network and dealing with some of these issues?
I appreciate that you mentioned colonization there, because that is something that a lot of peace builders unfortunately often ignore when they're working in conflict contexts. And that was kind of my experience. So Resolve, the way that Resolve came about was kind of in response to the work that I was doing before, because I came at it from completely the opposite side, which was that I was working from the top down. And I worked on U.S. legislation. I worked for NGOs. I did trainings for State Department, and so very much working on foreign policy with this very DC heavy perspective. And that means that I had a very front row seat at how poorly we were equipped to actually handle the challenges of peace building. Particularly when it comes to top-down approaches, where you think of peace processes and you think of handshakes between presidents and prime ministers, or presidents and rebel groups. And what we were missing, the component that we were missing, is that peace building programs are demonstrably more effective when you focus your activities at the community level. That's not to say the top-down doesn't have its value, but it's certainly overprivileged. And there's a link that's missing from a bottom-up approach, which really needs to be the main focus of peace building. So that's how we kind of came about. And there were a lot of remnants from colonization that's actually at the root of conflict in Congo today, which get completely sidelined when you only focus on the things that you can do with legislation, like focusing on conflict minerals, for instance.
Mhm. So, in your PowerPoint presentation, you had some of the beneficiaries. Can you tell us a story of any one of them?
Actually, one of the people that you met in the other video for Resolve is Chantal, and I believe she was in one of the pictures earlier from the slides. And Chantal is a former participant in Resolve, who is now she's now a Resolve trainer. So she conducts these peace building trainings herself now. And she was one of the first people who really struck me with her directness about former combatants. And she told me that, before I joined this program, I was thinking, if this doesn't work out, I'll go join a militia. And just the casualness in which she said that was really eye-opening for me about the types of people who go into militias. And I think I definitely, as an outsider and as a Western person, I definitely have had my stereotypes that I was thinking of when it came to people who are combatants, and the idea that I could be friends with somebody who thought that that was like a completely viable and reasonable line of work to go into was really quite eye-opening. And you know things intellectually, but sometimes you don't fully internalize what that means. And I think that's where I was. And then, there was all this data that we were seeing from our programs about how effective the program was at demobilization and reintegration of former combatants, which had not been that wasn't our main focus. We were a peace building organization, but we weren't particularly looking at reintegration. And Chantal and a few other of our participants who kept telling me about their experiences in militias, of their experiences about leaving militias, and then about counter-recruiting their friends who were still in militias. That really made me go, oh my God, what are you doing? This is so unsafe. And then, they really kind of convinced all of us in the Resolve program that this was something that we were already good at without trying to really be good at it. And so maybe we should really focus a little bit more and dig in deeper to really bring that element into our program.
Absolutely. So, in the Dining for Women family, with the host of featured grantees that we've had through the years, and some of our own understanding of what is happening in the world, we have seen this consistently, and I have seen this consistently even in my work, that when you have disaffected youth living in poverty, boys, girls, young adults, um, you have three groups of people who constantly hover around them and try to recruit them: human traffickers, people who are involved in conflict, and of course, terrorists. And they're always promising them another life, a better life, money, this, that, and the other. So I think it is left to the rest of us to kind of say, no, here's another option: education, building your community. But it's a tough one, right? We are competing with people who are extremely charming in the way they can recruit them. So tell us some of the other things that female combatants, former female combatants, have faced in this process.
For sure. Well, first, I just want to emphasize your point, which is so important. I mean, when you have a country with so many different armed groups, and where so many people are implicated in the violence, it's a real challenge when there's so many different parts of your community that are dominated by conflict actors, not necessarily militia members themselves, but they're recruiters, people who kind of set fires deliberately so that they can be the ones to put it out, you know? So all these different ways in which conflict entrepreneurs emerge in these communities, it can be a really difficult thing. If it can seem incredibly reasonable that violence is the only way to secure your future, to secure your survival, your any access to representation or decision making, and any access to income opportunities. You know, you have very little land that's openly available for farming to actual peasant populations. There's all these different economic pressures that exist there, and there's not much of a moneyed economy. It's a very agrarian society. So, you know, there's all these different things that lead people to consider armed group membership their only viable option. And it is absolutely up to us, all of us, to demonstrate the viability of peace, that there is an actual way out of this. And that's exactly what all of the participants in Resolve do every single day, which is why I believe that's why none of our participants have ever gone back to a militia, and none of our participants, so neither have any former combatants ever gone back, and none of our beneficiaries have ever joined a militia for the first time either. And that's pretty unprecedented. So
Absolutely.
it's a huge deal.
So it speaks to the work that you are doing and the changes that you're making. We're absolutely out of time, but I do not want to let you go without some parting thoughts on the future for all of us, because we are seeing a world that is being kind of split apart, where it's so easy to create conflict. It's so easy to say that this is the only way for self-determination. What are your parting thoughts?
For sure. I think that's so important. And you know, we talk about moving these things to the societal level, going from the individual to the communal to the societal level. And it's absolutely a long-term vision. It's difficult to implement. It's absolutely long-term, but I think we're seeing the same thing in the US and same thing globally right now, that these are not decisions we can leave up to our elected leaders and to politicians, to career politicians, etc. This is something that has to involve an active citizenry. And that's why I believe that the core of peace building has to involve equipping and bringing people to the table, bringing people who are most affected by the problem to discuss solutions and then implement them, evolve them, grow them together.
Absolutely. Vijaya, thank you so much for starting us off on discussions that we are going to have within our chapters, in our Dining for Women community, about the importance of people involved in all these issues, to have the conversations for us to build peace, world peace, local peace, democracy, and to kind of build the things that absolutely sustain us. Thank you for being here, and best wishes for a wonderful project. Thank
Thank
you.
you so much. And thank you so much for your support. We're really, really grateful.